Good morning, good morning. This is Nancy Mattox with What's Your Testimony on WYTV7 in Charlotte, North Carolina. We're so happy to be here today. We're so happy that we have such a very special guest, Mr. John P. Dennis. He is a #1 Amazon bestseller for his book, Women Raising. What is it, John? I forgot the name of it.
That's okay. It's Men Raised by Women. What he
There you go. Thank you. I apologize for that. I thought I had it written down and I didn't. John is also the president of the Georgia Writers Museum and also is the founder of Insight TMC LLC. So he has a lot to share with us today, and I'm so excited that you're here. Your book is outstanding. Your book has helped so many single mothers to raise their children in many ways. So I'm very excited about that. What's the most common question you get from single moms, John?
That's a very good question. I'm glad you asked that. Single moms are always asking me, what can I do to help them raising their sons? And while that is a fantastic question, that's actually the least most effective question, because what they really want is for me to mentor their sons for them. The reality is I am one of the only resources I'm aware of that actually does single parent education for the single mom only. So we need to make her a better, more equipped mother for the challenges that are coming. And I draw from expert guidance, from studies, from personal experience, from mentoring programs, because while that's the question that she asked me, the question that she should ask me, even though she wants male mentors to help her son, what is the #1 complaint that male mentors have? And most moms don't know that. Their #1 complaint is the mother. And so that's why I work with the mothers to create another level of cooperation to help them as they're trying to get help raising their son.
Wow, John, that is a little surprising that their #1 complaint is of their mother.
Yes.
And then also that's probably their #1 joy in life too, is their mother. So there's truly conflict there.
Well, the mentors, the #1 complaint the male mentors have that work at these agencies is the single mom. The way that they work with the son, and then he goes back into the home, and some of the behaviors and tendencies of the mom actually undermine what she is hoping the mentor would be investing in the boy. And so that's where we're going to end up in the next piece of the conversation. What is happening that touches all that?
Wow. Okay, great. Tell us about 5 major issues you discuss at your conferences that you have for the single mom.
So these are the big issues. This is why and how I get invited back, and what people seem to have never heard before, or maybe they've never heard it phrased the way that I phrase it. And it's a summary that God really has given me to help cover that issue and explain it, but bring it all down to earth. You know, I'm not a psychiatrist, a psychologist. I'm a man who has done all kinds of things in corporate world and done all kinds of things in the mentoring world, and trying to explain it on a level where it can really help you, not just something that's an exercise in our academics, but really how do we help people? And so the way I describe it is a straw man. And so the single mom, because she has to deliver on all the responsibilities at home all by herself, she constructs a straw man at her side. The straw man is the help you get from other people, where we kind of outsource all these different needs, right? She can't pick the kid up from school, so maybe she'll ask another mom who has the same schedule or has a kid in the class, hey, can you pick up little Johnny for me? And she says, sure. Or maybe she doesn't have enough money and there's still a lot of month left, right? And so she might go to her brother, Jeff. And so Jeff will fill in, and that's her other straw man that helps. And so really in the absence of a partner that will fulfill all those responsibilities, she farms out those things to different people. And those people construct a straw man. They pick up the weight that the other partner, if he were there, would actually carry. That's the straw man. Now, what makes that important to understand is you can do all of that. And there's a bunch of different categories, right? But there are 5 categories that matter the most, because if you put any of those 5 categories onto your developing son, it will distort his development. It will undermine his masculine development and his growth. And so those 5, right? This is the big deal. This is where we go to work, right? It's the 2 C's and the 2 P's, right? First, you cannot let your son become a companion. He cannot be a leaning post. You cannot share your emotional weight and baggage and your heart issues with your child. You shouldn't do these things with your daughter, but I can explain the development lapses it creates in the son a lot more accurately, because that's what I do. And so when they do these things, they tear him down on the inside. Now, each one of these 5 areas is a separate conference breakout session all by itself. So I'm just going to give you the overall, and we'll keep moving, and you'll get a chance to plug me with questions as we go. But you've got the companion piece, right? The other thing you cannot and should not do with him is make him the co-parent, right? He should not be parenting siblings. You should see the men that I speak to that dread the fact that he's only 30 years old, but he's been a parent for 20 years, right? Because he's been parenting his siblings, and they still bear the burden of their underling siblings because of it. Now, and here's where we differentiate. If mom has to work late and you're the older kid and you're there with your siblings until mom gets home, everybody understands that. We're not talking about that. We're talking about when mom decides she's going to have a date night. And Johnny wants to go to a movie himself, and he has to stay and watch his siblings while mom goes on date night. These are the things that we start seeing. And once you develop the pattern of priorities, they'll start making sense not to pull them in. But a lot of times nobody is really helping them see that is going to harm him in the long run, because these guys no longer want to have the family responsibility, because the first time they encountered it, it was much too heavy for them. And so it completely intimidated them. So those are the 2 C's, right? The companion and co-parent. So then there's the 2 P's, right? As long as you're doing that, he's a companion, he's a co-parent, that's a problem. Now, what's the other 2? He cannot be your protector. You can't make your child your protector. And when I say that, it sounds foreign, but oh my goodness, if you would see the number of people that have done it, the number of men that start nodding in the audience, the number of Facebook messages that I get that I had to go this, and the number of guys that have thrown out their mother's boyfriends or had to fight for their mother, it is incredible. And the way some of these guys are still going back into their mothers, men, even as adults, are going back trying to police the lives of their mothers. It's incredible. So the protector, right? And then the last piece to these legs that are being built under it is the provider. So he should not be given the responsibility as a provider. Now, if you want to get him a phone and let him have a job and pay his own phone bill, that's him sustaining one of his own interests. If you want to have him buy his own clothing, that's him sustaining his own things. But if he gets one of the bills in the house, now you're starting to put weight, and now you're starting to change his idea about responsibilities and the weight that it puts on his heart. And the last one, right, the 5th one, is called just what we're used to in Christianity, the head, right? What typically happens, and this isn't science, this is more art, but what typically happens is if you put 2 or more of those weights on a boy, he will start trying to be the head in the house. If you start making him your companion and your provider, he'll start telling you when you should and shouldn't date people and when you can and can't do things. And he'll start deciding when he can come in. I can remember a story of a mom telling a boy he needs to be in the house by 10 at night, and him telling her, I pay the bills around here. And so they end up doing things like, and they have what I call moral suspension. They'll suspend their morals, their idea of right and wrong, so that they can try to do what they need to do to take care of their family. And when I used to do prison ministry and work with a lot of guys, they always would say, hey man, I just had to do what I had to do. They've suspended what they understand. They understand right and wrong, but they suspend it because they feel the weight of that priority. They are too young to understand how to decide life based on principles. And so they just try to go based on priorities that are distorted. And they're too young, and so their masculine understanding development's undermined. All right, I'll take a break. I know you might have some questions built up.
Thank you so much. First of all, I'd like to remind everyone that's just joined us that I'm Nancy Mattox, and we're doing What's Your Testimony on WYTV7 in Charlotte today. We have such a special guest, John P. Dennis. He is the #1 Amazon bestseller of the book Men Raised by Women, and it's a very, very informative what you're sharing with us today, John. I thank you so much for that. I do have a couple of questions, as you may know. Anytime you respond, I always have questions. So it sounds to me as if the sons that are raised by single moms have more of a chance, or really less of a chance, of making it in society as a normal person as they grow older. And it seems that these kind of things, the companion, co-parenting, protector, provider, and then the head of the household would lead them into the streets and into the gangs. Is there any correlation to that you see when you speak in your prison ministry? This is kind of what led them to that.
Yeah, that's exactly what we get at. They go for, when they suspend their morals, then they don't have any principles that will say to them, hey, I would never do that. In fact, they say the other, which is what they'll quote. These are quotes. They'll say, hey, I had to do what I had to do. Even though he was in church, he was in Sunday school, he was in the choir, he will still go do things that are illegal to try to bring money into the home because he can't work a normal job. He's 14, but he's 6'2" and 250 pounds. And so he can go out and do things. And this is a very common and very recurring problem, and it's very easy. And what most people don't know about street life, because most people aren't there, is that most of the people doing these illegal acts are not just bad people. It's just a young kid who knows another kid that's standing on the corner that says, hey man, I know a way you could make some money. All you have to do is stand over here and call this number if you see a police car come down the street. It feels very innocent. He's not into the dirtier parts of the business, and he gets to bring home $500 to his mother at the end of the week. And so those things are too much. That's too alluring for a young person that's seeking guidance, and it breaks them down over time. And watching his mother again cry on his shoulder, explain the status of the bills, put the weight of life in front of him, it's more than a young person is going to have the resistance to.
Goodness, it's so much deeper than what, of course, I thought, and I'm sure what our audience is thinking. The ramifications of men raised by women, which is really single moms, it just really is amazing, the forethought that you put into it, and what the book tells us about that we really can't even begin to understand how many issues it causes. But one thing that interests me is that you said that they lose their masculinity. So I'd like for you to talk a little bit more about that, because obviously if we emasculate our men, then they also can't live a normal life either. So it's just not, it just causes more and more problems. Could you elaborate on that a little bit more?
Yeah. what is important to understand is I call it, and it's good to get this part accurate. They have a deficit in their masculine development, right? It's a deficit. There's somewhere in there where it should be full and it's empty. There's somewhere in there where it should be up to 100 and it's at 42. There's somewhere in there where they're missing a major component in their development and they're stuck there. And so this deficit is what causes misunderstandings in the definitions of things. So I'll give you an example. Young boy grows up with his single mom. Single mom, and I know many of them that say, I don't need a man to raise my son. Okay, that's very good. What about your son? And that's one of the chapters in my book. Because what you find out is, as often as you keep saying that, later on, when he goes out into the dating world and he gets his girlfriend pregnant, and him and his girlfriend have tension and they get on the edge, and if they break up, he will immediately make the assumption that his single mom's or his child's mother can raise that kid without him. And he will suspend his obligation to be a part of that kid's life because he feels like, well, I know the kid will be okay. He says I'm okay, even though he's not. And he will be able to move on to relationship after relationship, never feeling the burden that a man that is squared away and fully developed will understand that my child needs me and I will go through anything and everything to be available for my child. And so his development is down here when it should be up there. His level of obligation and responsibility to family is not where it should be. That's what I mean when I say the deficit in his masculine development. That is his place in the family, and he can dismiss it. Happens way too often.
That's profound right there, as far as I'm concerned. Also, you talk a little bit too about single parents or single ladies struggling when they're trying to date men, because the men have been raised by their single mothers, and they have certain characteristics. So when the women try to date them, can you elaborate a little bit on that too?
As you can tell, that's a whole conference all by itself. The single ladies, whether they have kids or not, they all want to know, because all of them attest to the fact that there's something difficult to handle going on with the men that they keep meeting. And so what I do is I try to describe it, like I say, I try to bring everything down to earth so you can walk away from this conversation with a tool in your toolkit. And so what I do is I describe them as being a post-dated check, right? For the young people listening, because I found out at one conference, the young folks don't use checks anymore. So for the young people, you could write a check, meaning you were going to pay this amount to a person, and you can put a date off into the future, 2 weeks from now, because you plan on depositing money later on. Maybe your paycheck hasn't hit, and that's when the check is supposedly going to be good. And that's what these guys are. They're post-dated checks. They don't have their value built up yet. They haven't reached and attained these great heights. And so they sell themselves to young ladies on the potential. And the ladies eat it up. And I see girls in college, women with degrees, advanced professionals that go for this over and over and over again. And they cannot identify how they keep stepping on the banana peel with this guy. And then next thing they know, they have a child with a person who never was able to even afford child support. I mean, the guys move in with them. The guys are barely working jobs. They're not pursuing higher education. They're not doing anything. They've got an excuse for everything. They've got a rationale, but they're going to have their own business. But they're going to get into this or get into that. There's always something. And so I get over them really quickly. It takes me probably 30 seconds when I say, okay, well, I do what's called a now test. And it's really just, what are you doing right now? That's all you have to do to find them out. What are you doing right now? Nothing in the future, tell me, what are you doing right now? Something you did this morning or within the past 3 to 5 days, something you actually did, not just projected. And you'll smoke them out pretty quick. But yeah, there's a whole circle of content around those guys. They are fun to deal with, but it's not fun to have one attached to your family, and certainly a tough road if one of them becomes a parent to your child.
Goodness gracious, it's just so far-reaching. There's so much depth into all of this, and I'm just so excited that you've researched it, you lived through it, and that is what your testimony is. Really, your testimony is this book, and then teaching people how to get through this. It's very deep and very profound. Now I'd like to ask you another question. How are families being affected by the material that you provide?
So this is really interesting. I see the single moms are, and let me also say this, 5% of kids are bad kids, right? And that's not an accurate statistic, but it's just to give us an idea, right? Most kids are not bad kids, but there's a very small element that truly are bad kids. And even in the prison population, that's a small percentage of the number of men in society. The number of boys going out of single homes into prison is a scary number, but it's still a small percentage. So that means there is a large body of young boys growing up in a single parent home. And last statistics thing I saw was greater than 13 million single parent homes. So there's a large volume of boys that are good boys, and they still have this deficit. And so that's why I bring all these things up. It's not just material for the kids that are bad and are running around on the streets and doing drugs and all that. It's material for the good kid, because good kids get neglected much more than bad kids. Bad kids get all the attention and the resources. So you've got the good boys making good grades. He's behaving. He's saying yes, ma'am, and yes, sir, but he still does not know how to be a man. In fact, he's so docile that when he starts dating, the girls often will say he's too soft and he needs to emerge a little bit, and they'll be prodding and pushing him. But he's been taught to be submissive to women in a way that it's not healthy for his male development. So that's one of the things. So what it's doing is helping single moms pull back from being so overbearing and dominant that they quench his male development. He's a little lion on the inside. Every now and then he's going to want to roar, and they start identifying that that's normal for a man and normal for a male. The other thing that's happening, which was completely unexpected, was I get a great deal of input from stepfathers, because a lot of ladies continue dating and they find a great guy and they marry him and they've got this son in the home, and the stepfather comes in and starts seeing all the issues that I'm talking about. Hey, you shouldn't be trying to treat that boy like he's your boyfriend. I mean, I'm the male in this house. And if the boy has become a head in the house, it's really an issue. He thinks he can come and go as he pleases. He thinks he can. And so the stepdads are really, matter of fact, I was on the phone with one when we started this broadcast, and they are really attesting to the fact that somebody needs to stop these mothers from letting these boys get in these distorted functions in the home, because it creates such drama for the stepdads that a lot of them are divorcing their spouses because of the son-mother relationship. And they don't have the energy for it. And the mother is in a torn position because she feels that her son relationship is the priority over her husband relationship, because she already had him. And so everything is so distorted, and then people try to go to priorities after they've distorted everything, and instead of unraveling the actual tentacles that are in the wrong places and attaching them where they should, and then putting authority over the family with the mom and dad, and then bringing the son into authority. And so all those different parts and pieces are really causing a struggle in a normal or a blended family that has come back together. And then the last component, which is very interesting, is the detached dad. So the detached dads that are out there that are watching what I put out, they are trying to find creative ways, which I can understand this would have to be pretty tough. How do you get John Dennis's book to your ex-wife or to your baby's mother, so to speak? How do you share this? And it's really tough on those guys. They're working on it, but it's not an easy nut to crack or a puzzle, but they're finding answers, and some of them are buying the books and sharing them with those ladies, and just reaching out and seeing what difference that the material can make, because I can say things they can't say. And because I don't have any relationship dynamics where the person can try to come back. But yeah, so that's it.
That's just so fascinating. I'm doing a side job. I'm driving for Uber, and I actually take a lot of young men from homes to their jobs, and I take a lot of young men from their homes to their colleges and back to their homes. And it's really true what you're saying, because they're so polite. They're so yes ma'am, no ma'am. They're just absolutely delightful young men. And what I find is that they want to converse about their family life, a lot of times about their mom, and they're very open to discuss it and how they have to take care of the family. And everything that you've expressed in this interview has just really been proven to me. First, I read your book, and then I turn around and I just start observing as I'm doing and meeting these young men, and it's just all so true. It's amazing. And I watch them, and of course I don't say anything because I really don't know anything about all of that. But I just listen to them, and they're just delightful young men trying to make it in the world, going to college or going on their jobs. But you can see that underlying, that domineering mother underlying, that's causing a lot of issues with exactly the same things that you're saying. And it would behoove people as they're meeting these young people to offer a suggestion of this book so they can understand themselves, as well as maybe they could get their mother to read it, which would be fantastic. So, John, we're about to wrap up. I appreciate you so much for being on WYTV What's Your Testimony? And I'm so excited for you. Can you share a few parting words with us and give us your contact information so everyone knows where they can get the book?
Yeah, you can find Men Raised by Women on Amazon. You can also find me and more material on my website at johnpdennis.com. You can find me on Facebook at John P. Dennis. You can find me on Twitter at JP Dennis. And so I try to be out there and available. And then I also have a YouTube channel, John P. Dennis, as well. So I'm out there. And if you do a little bit of searching, you'll find me. I'm the only John P. Dennis that looks like me. And so it's pretty good to be able to be out there. And what I like to say is, for every family, so far I haven't found any families that this doesn't touch. We've all got a sister or a cousin or aunt or nephew, because the divorce rate thing is so high, 50+%. It's all around us. And so we need to minister to this field, right? The harvest is ripe, and it's out there. And this is a very underserved portion of the community. Only 1% of churches have a single parent ministry. They have singles ministry, but don't have a single parent ministry. And you have to understand this element to minister to it. You can't come to it from a two-parent household and think you know these dynamics. There's a whole world that you have horse blinders to. And so my book will help you if you mentor. It will help you if you do single parents ministry. It will help you if you're a detached dad. It will help you if you're a stepdad. And so God's letting me fulfill that desire to reach back into those elements, and I'm grateful.
Well, thank you, John. I appreciate you so much, and I understand that you're headed out of the country. And I would like to know if we could still be able to contact you to do these interviews. I'd like for maybe to try to set up some type of conferencing where we can do the segments and conference, do some webinars for people like we're doing now, that we can post on all the social media, as well as email to our contacts that we have. I know WYTV7 would love to have that happen. I would love to have that happen. And then also, all of us, if we get a cohesive group of people, we can also send that to all of our friends in different ways. We can send out send them out, through email and things like that to all of our contacts. I know I have a lot of churches and a lot of pastors and religious leaders that I'm in touch with every day, and I know WYTV does too. So when we get it out on the circuit, it could really be a help to everyone, and we're definitely going to want them to get the book. So I thank you so much. Do you have any more closing words for us?
Just thank you for allowing this opportunity to share some of the message. I do travel around, as you know. I've spoken at the National Single Moms Conference, had invitations to the Single Parenting Summit that I have to kind of not make it to because of other obligations, the life of a single mom. There's some great things happening in central parts of the country, but on the coast, towards where I am in Atlanta and up the East Coast, there's very few things going on. And so we intend to build something to serve the family in that part of the country and across the country, so that these kind of resources can get to the families. Otherwise, we're going to be looking at another generation that struggles in this issue, because there is a cyclical component to this that will cause it to reproduce itself. As you saw the young boy detaching from his own family, and it keeps recreating itself. And so we plan to intercept all that. That's part of the mission God has us on.
Wonderful, then. I thank you so much again, John. And this is WYTV in Charlotte. I'm Nancy Mattox. And we're going to close out for the day. So thank you a lot, and God bless everyone. Bye-bye.